Formatting your resume for an applicant tracking system can be very tricky because there's a lot to remember. But don't worry, because today we're going to be covering the 9 most common formatting mistakes that could be costing you the job. So let's not waste any more time and jump right into things. So in order to understand why it's so important to format your resume for an applicant tracking system, it's crucial to understand what an ATS is. Now, if you don't know what an ATS is or how it really works, I would highly recommend checking this video out first so that you learn everything you need to on applicant tracking systems. And if you don't have time to watch the video right now, it is totally okay. Really quickly, to get you up to speed, an ATS or an applicant tracking system is a computer software that HR departments use to process the overwhelming number of applications they receive for job openings. Think of an ATS as a database that stores candidate information like resumes, cover letters, and other data. Recruiters can then search that database for resumes with certain skills, job titles, years of experience, degrees, and other keywords. And if you've stuck around with us for a while, you know that not having an ATS-friendly resume can be something that could break your job search. And this is because if your resume is not formatted correctly, the ATS might not be able to read it, which can make it hard for recruiters to find your application. So to avoid all of that and make sure you're coming to the top of a recruiter's ATS search, here are the 9 common formatting mistakes you should avoid when creating your ATS-friendly resume. So dates might seem like a trivial detail, but they actually do matter when it comes to applicant tracking systems. And according to our most recent survey of 380 recruiters, over 44% of them filter candidates by years of experience. So what this means is that if your dates aren't formatted correctly, the ATS might not be able to pick up on your total years of experience accurately. And when you're deciding on how to format your dates, it's important to be consistent and use the same format throughout. So here are a few ways you can write out your dates so that it scans and parses correctly. And here are the ways that you should avoid writing out dates on your resume. You can also use JobScan's resume scanner to quickly see if your dates are formatted correctly. Here, it'll tell you how we recommend you format your dates so that your resume scans correctly. Abbreviations can actually be a silent killer when it comes to your chances of landing an interview. For example, if you're a CPA and you have that on your resume instead of certified public accountant, when a recruiter goes to search for certified public accountant, your resume may not show up in their search results. So that's why we highly recommend including both the acronym and long form version of key terms like this, so that you'll appear in searches for either term. You'd think that the way to have your resume stand out is by using bright colors, graphics, and having a big headshot on the page so they will never forget who you are. But that is in fact the quickest way to get your resume rejected. And the reason is because most ATSs have trouble reading elements like graphics, tables, columns, and even non-traditional bullet points like a star or a diamond. So if you have any of these, it's best to take them off because they can really mess up how your resume appears in an ATS. You can also double check to see if your resume can be read by an ATS in JobScan's resume scanner. The scanner will share a detailed report that points out any formatting errors and also tells you how to optimize your ATS resume for the job you're applying to. And the best part is that it's completely free to use, so definitely check it out if you're unsure if your resume is ATS friendly. I'll have it linked below in the description. So when you're organizing your resume, you don't want anything at the very top or the very bottom of your resume because this can cause parsing issues for the ATS. We found that ATSs only focus on the content of the main body of the resume, so there's really no reason to put anything important outside of this area, including in the margins. It's always good practice to have 1-inch margins on all sides of your resume and to keep these margins clear of any text. And again, JobScan's resume scanner can check on this for you as well. When it comes to resumes, the simpler the better, even down to the fonts you choose to use. In our research of some of the most popular ATSs, we found that weird or unique fonts can lead to resumes not being parsed correctly or even at all. So sticking to a standard or common web font is the best option when submitting a resume through applicant tracking systems. By having a font that is difficult to read, you're risking the chance of having an ATS not interpret your information correctly. So be sure to stick to fonts that are widely available and commonly used, like these ones. It's also a good idea to use the same font throughout and stick to a 10 to 12 point font. Overall, it's just important to prioritize readability and clarity over creative design when you're submitting a resume through an applicant tracking system. So if you're thinking of getting creative with your resume section headings, you might want to think again. When you use non-standard headings like what I've done, where I've studied, or what I'm good at, the ATS might struggle to identify the correct sections for work experience versus skills versus education and so on. So it's best to just make things simple and clear and use headlines like work experience, education, and skills to ensure that your resume is easy to scan. So you probably know all about file types, but if you don't, a file type is the kind of file you use to save your resume and other documents on your computer. And you can usually tell the file type by the letters at the end of the file name, like these ones. And because different file types store and display information differently, there's some file types that are more ATS friendly than others, like a doc or a docx or a PDF. Sometimes an employer may prefer one file type over another, so always be sure to double check the job description for any specific requirements. And just to be safe, you can plug in your resume in JobScan's resume scanner and it'll identify the file type that can be read by the ATS. It also tells you if there's a problem with the way that you saved your resume, so you can rest assured that your resume will be able to be read by an ATS. So according to a survey, 77% of hiring managers said that they would reject a resume with any typos or grammatical errors. They say that typos can signal a lack of attention to detail, and if you miss small mistakes on your resume, recruiters will assume you'll miss bigger ones on the job. Typos can also make your resume look a little sloppy and unprofessional, and in some cases, they can even prevent the ATS from reading your information correctly. So proofreading is essential, but it's really easy to miss your own mistakes, especially if you're staring at the same document for hours. That's why it's a good idea to ask someone to review your resume before you submit it, because a fresh pair of eyes can easily catch errors that you might overlook. Not all ATSs work the same. In fact, each one has its own features and algorithms, which means that they interpret and score resumes differently. That's why it's so important to tailor your resume not just to the job description, but also to the specific ATS the company uses. Now, if you are new to the ATS game, it can be kind of hard to identify which ATS the company is using or how that ATS really works, which is why JobScan's Power Edit really comes in handy for this. Power Edit makes tailoring your resume to an ATS really easy by providing ATS-specific tips based on the company you're applying to. So when you upload your job information with the company, title, and URL of the job listing, Power Edit will provide ATS-specific tips so that you can get ahead of some of the curveballs that come with each ATS. So those are the most common ATS resume formatting mistakes that could be costing you the interview. And to recap, this is exactly what you should be doing to make sure your resume is formatted correctly for an ATS. Number 1, use consistent and clear date formats. Number 2, use the long form versions of abbreviations and acronyms. 3, leave off any graphics, tables, columns, and photos from your resume. 4, remove any text from headers and footers. 5, use a common font that's easy to read. 6, use conventional headings to make sure your resume is parsed correctly. 7, save your resume as a docx or a PDF. 8, proofread your resume. And 9, tailor your resume to each ATS. We know that this can be a lot to remember, so to make life easier, you can scan your resume in JobScan's resume scanner, which checks for all the things we talked about in today's video to ensure your resume is ATS friendly. Remember, even the smallest changes can make the biggest difference when it comes to your job search. So that is all for today's video. I really hope that this helps anyone out there who's searching for a job. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.